Hola, profesora Zaida. Soy su alumna Ruth Arvizu de la clase de Interpretación y Traducción del idioma inglés. Y escogí para esta tarea la interpretación simultánea y voy a interpretar una conferencia de una hermana de mi iglesia. Y solamente tomé un fragmento de esta conferencia. Escogí voy a empezar desde el minuto 14 hasta el minuto 18. Y el tema de esta conferencia se llama Experimentando el amor de Dios. Experimenting God's Love. Y pues vamos a comenzar. Espero que le guste y que sea de bendición. Saludos, profesora Zaida. But at the same time, in that moment, God made me feel that I'm human. That's why you're going through this situation. There is much easier to doubt, and in many Christians could happen this. It's much easier to doubt of God's love than God's power. We are so convinced that God can do everything and that he's able to do all things. But when a trouble comes into our lives, we feel insecure, we feel alone, we feel unhappy, we feel unprotected, and unconsciously, we start doubting of God's love. And I want to take you, please, to the book of Psalms, chapter 31, verse 22. And that psalm, sisters, is where God this morning drove me to his attention so I can go back to him. Because, sister, the Bible says, verse 22, for I said in my haste, I am cut off from before thine eyes. Nevertheless, thou heardest the voice of my supplication when I cried. But the first part, what does it say? For I said in my haste, it says, I am cut off from before thine eyes. When he's talking about the haste, it's talking about the urgency when we attend that situation. And it says, when you are in that affliction and you're trying to understand that situation that came into your life, many times, sisters, we're going to feel alone. That God is not there with us, but we know. And the psalmist is saying, instantly, is saying, for said in my haste, I am cut off. Nevertheless, thou heardest the voice of my life. And frequently, that's our first reaction. When the adversity comes into our lives, one thing, sisters, God cannot abandon us because we are his children. Who will take us away from God? No one. So that is a truth that sometimes myself, I have forgotten. I forget that God cannot abandon me because I'm his child. And I know that he hasn't left me, but my heart left that I was alone. It felt sad. It felt afflicted. I remember once in a call, my pastor told me, Sister Ruth, it is okay to be sad, but not to be troubled, to be worried. I wasn't in control of my affliction. And I didn't know how, Pastor, how can I do this? How can I do this? But I understood when I read this passage, what my pastor was trying to tell me. It's okay to be sad, but God is right there with you. But the Bible says, in my haste, in my urgency to resolve the situation, I felt alone. But sister, we need to remember that God cannot abandon us because we are his children. We cannot cut off from God's side. Y hasta ahí termina mi participación, maestra. Saludos.